Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to make a random number generator. I've already created the project, renamed my program file to randomnumbergenerator.cs, and stubbed out my program and written some pseudocode to lay out what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is create my loop. I'm going to need a variable to collect the user's input. This time I'm going to use a string to get their input. I'm going to use a do loop for my main loop. Last time we were using a read operation, and do another was an integer, and we were using a char. This time, since we're using a string, notice that we have double quotes around the y. And I'm going to initialize this string to no, and this will actually run at this point in time, but it's fairly trivial piece of code, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more. I'm going to put my prompt to my user. Make sure I specify what I want them to respond with. And then read and do another using the console.readLine method this time. And so here's our loop. We'll initialize do another. We have a do loop. We prompt our user, and if we run this, we should have a functioning loop. The build worked. It's asking me if I want to do another, and my loop is working. So that's good. The next step is to ask the user for input. So I'll ask them for the magnitude of the random number. We're going to need something to get that user input. We're going to bring that in as a string. The readLine method returns a string, as we can see. That's going to go into user input. We're going to verify that that's what we're getting. Put a to-do comment in case I get pulled away so that I can remember to remove that. And test it. And we're getting inputs, so we know that's working. Next, we'll implement our checks to see if we're actually validating our input. We'll use the try-parse method. We're going to try-parse the user input, but we need to send it out to something, and so we're going to declare an integer called magnitude. And you'll notice in the previous demo we had a double try-parse. Here we have int try-parse, and so we need to provide it an integer in this position. And now we can create our for or if then else structure. If it's not an int, we're going to display an error message. And if it is, for now, we're just going to temporarily put a message that says it's an int. Notice that IntelliSense tells me that there's an error. I can double click on that. That brings me to where the error is. Doesn't like that. What I really wanted was a closed parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to test it. Okay, it recognizes that as an integer. Do another. Recognizes that that string is not an integer. I'll put in a floating value and recognize that that's not an integer. So we know our validation code works. The next step is going to be actually putting in the random number function. So to create a random number, what we do is we're going to instantiate an object called a random. What's a random? Well, random is a class, and I'm declaring this random object. I'm going to call it random. That's the identifier with the lowercase r. Random with the uppercase R is the class, and we use the new keyword and the name of the class, and we see that there's a couple different ways of instantiating a random. As I look at IntelliSense, we can give it a seed, or we can not give it a seed. In C#, the random number generator will automatically be seeded with I believe it uses the timer somehow, but we don't have to pass it a seed, luckily, in C#, so that's very convenient. Once I have this random number generator, I want to create a random number, so I'm going to declare an int called ranNumber. And we're going to set it equal to random, and the random class has a next method, and we're going to one of the overrides of the random method allows us to put in a min value and a max value. So we're going to make the min value 0 and the max value be the magnitude that the user requested, and so that will generate a number between 0 and whatever the magnitude the user put in. And then we're just going to send that out to the standard output. We're going to use a placeholder to store that number in that string. And you'll notice that with this format we have string format, that's the format here, which has placeholders in it, and then we pass it something to put into that format for that placeholder. In this case it's going to be our ran number. And that should complete this program. Let's go ahead and test it. So if I put the number 9 in, I get a random number. Yes, I'd like to do another. Put a number 9 in, and we can see that it is generating random numbers. I put a string in, it recognizes it's not one, and then I can exit. Thank you.